Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. I am going to tell you some hotkeys and settings which were really game changers for me. My qualifications, if you're wondering, is that I am still a new player. So I think I know what new players are looking for and what helps them out. Of course, there are deep dives out there by pro players if you want to go and check those out. But these are just like quick hot tips, which for me had the most substantial differences. All right, so let's jump in then. My number one thing, which was a huge game changer for me, is in the settings, view and remap controls, game. There it is. Return all villagers to work from Seek Shelter. I used to click each and every outpost and return to work, return to work, return to work. What I did not know is that there's one key you can press for all of those. By the way, my key bindings are specific to me. You can choose whichever ones you want, which is right for you. This is not what this video is about. I just want to tell you which ones you should be making use of one way or another, right? So that was a huge game changer because it saves you so much time. You're rattled by the fact that you have to go and sort all this stuff out. And now you can get back to what you were trying to do faster because all you need to do is press this one key. For me, is Shift R, it just makes sense. And yeah, that's my number one massive game changer. It's actually the first one I did as well. And I was like, okay, this is a huge difference. So the next one, the second one I'm going to go to is also a very simple one. In the unit selection, cycle through idle economic units. We end up pressing that idle workers button quite a lot. If I show you, you're pressing it quite a lot throughout your games. I'm always doing this, going, oh, well, look, I got one free, I got another one free, I got another one free. But it just makes sense because you're clicking it so many times to have a key assigned to it. For me, it's backslash right next to the Z because that key isn't being used for anything else. In my brain, it makes sense because it's next to all the building buttons. My third tip, individual scouts. So I have it on my mouse key, but if you're anything like me, you would lose your scouts from time to time at the beginning. And you can set them to a control group, that's fine. The control group makes sense, especially like for combat, and I was doing that. But when I realized that there is a key that all I need to do is press it and find my scout, it's just so much, it makes so much more sense. Like, for me anyway, because I free up a key that I can, in the control groups that I can use for a different thing, right? So if I got like 1 on melee troops, 2 on range, 3 on cavalry, 4 on springald, 5 on mangonels. You know, at that point you've run out of control groups. There's not enough. My hands aren't big enough to be hitting 6, 7, 8, and 9. So it's just good to have a separate key for the scout. But again, it allows you to cycle through them. But if you wanted to just use a control group, that's also fine. I just thought I'd let you know that it's there. Just a note that unlike the idle villager, which I snap to, I don't snap to the scout. This is a bit of a bonus tip, I suppose. It's something for you to think about and consider. But you can control this by going to this section right here, just at the very beginning. Select and center camera is the default. I changed these to select only because I found it annoying to keep snapping back to the scout when I was trying to bring him into the combat. But also just generally, like, you don't want to snap to your buildings every time you select a building because you're trying to do something somewhere else. You don't need to see the building in order to queue a spearman, right? So just a little bonus tip there as well. Cool. That's number 3. Number 4 is actually my newest discovery, and it's this thing here in the camera section. Camera mode panoramic. This is a game changer. Everyone's playing with, well, not everyone, of course. A lot of people who are new, like myself, would be playing on Classic because that's the default. I can't show you this right now because I need to start a new game for it to take effect, I just realized. But just trust me that the panoramic is way more zoomed out than the Classic. And for me, it just kind of, coming from a game where you zoom out quite a lot, it makes more sense to be this high up. But you can also zoom in a little bit to make it more suitable to your needs. So yeah, I suggest moving to panoramic. As soon as I tried it one time, I was like, this is the way to go. But, you know, if you prefer Classic, stick with Classic. The next tip I want to give you is about building hotkeys, right? So I used to control group these. I used to be like, okay, so I used to think I was really smart and take these, I'll make these number 7, and then every time I made a new stable, like I would have to, every time I made a new stable, I would have to then like take it, add it to the control group, you know, and in the middle of a huge, you know, game, that's quite a lot of things to be doing. So now I have go into settings, view and remap controls, building selection, skip all of this cycle through business and go straight down to select all. And for me, I know it looks like I have the num keys. It's because my keyboard has extra buttons. If your keyboard doesn't have extra buttons, just make use of what you have. You know, for example, like the backslash or maybe even the caps lock key or whatever. You know, you don't actually use these things very much. You can rebind a Windows key using a, I don't know if you can do it in game, but you can use like third-party software like Auto Hotkey, and it's like, you know, when game is active, Windows key equals num3. You know, for example, I used to do that with other games when I had a different keyboard. So yeah, you can. There are ways to make the most of your keyboard space. But even if you don't want to do that, you can just assign it to like 6, 7, 8, 9, because realistically, you're not going to be touching those control groups anyway. So, you know, you could do it like that. But whatever, I'll leave that to you to decide. The point is, this is here and it is useful. So something to bear in mind, of course, is that as the English and different civs have different things about them, right? But as the English, your keeps are production buildings. So, and they are not included in, for example, archery ranges, as you can see. They're not included in the barracks. So they need to have a separate one. So for me, I unfortunately, you know, I don't know if you would need to do this if you weren't playing English, but for me, I have the keep set because I think it's important to be able to, you know, continue to produce. And notice how it includes the White Tower as well. It would include Berkshire Palace if I had that built. I've tested that. One of the things I do is I actually set the button to the left of number 1, that console button. You could set that to idle workers and stuff, or idle scout, whatever. But for me, I set it to control group 0 because I feel like it makes sense to the left of 1 for there to be 0, and it gives me more control groups to have access to. So, for example, you can put like religious units on here and things like that, which could be quite useful. Yeah, so I just think it's because instead of your hand only being able to reach 5, you can now reach 6. So it's just quite useful for me anyway. It's small tips, I know. I've banged out the big ones early in the video, but one more small tip to end on, which is building selection. Right at the top here, select all economy and select all technology. Select all military sucks, don't use it. You have to tab through. It includes things you don't want to include, and it doesn't include things you do want to include. It's just, it's a mess. But these two are actually quite useful, and I'll show you that now. So as my final closing tip, so F1 brings up all of these, you know, the mill, the mining camp, the lumber camp, and I can be like, oh shit, I forgot to do my wood upgrade. So it's good. It's a good way of checking. Just be aware that it does include the market, and because it includes the market, it will, these buttons will be here, and it will hide things like enclosures, you know, your Z research, if you have a civ that has research down here, like English, for example. So just be aware that it's not a catch-all, or you might have to tab through a little bit, but you don't use that button very often. And the next one is F2, which takes you to the blacksmith and the university. I think it's always useful to have a key where you're just always checking to see if you've done your research. And yeah, I hope you guys found that useful. Appreciate you stopping by. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. I'd really appreciate that. Tiny channel, really trying to grow. Let me know if there's any kind of Age of Empires content you want to see, because I'm still trying to figure out which direction I'm going with this. And yeah, love you guys. Have a great time. Bye-bye.